patiently, like, oh, I thought Josh was going to go live. Yeah. All right, cool. We're all set, baby. So, again, let's just dive right into it, ladies and gentlemen. All right. So, we're going to start with, let's start with the options watch list. All right. Let's start with the big boy. Whoa. That scared me. I thought someone was talking to me, and that was me talking to myself. That was odd. All right, let's start with Google. All right, Google, yesterday we were talking about this one for the daily gap fill, right? And the trade plan was a crack and retest below 128.72. You got it, right? You had a quick little crack and retest. You flushed. Did you completely fill the gap? No. Did you see the stock drop, though? Yeah, it was a profitable trade. The stock dropped about $1. Came back up to that level, quick scalp. It dropped, came back up to that level, nice little drop. You could have scalped it a few times here on Google. So, I mean, that trade was intact. There was confirmation for it. Never hit target, but it was definitely well over a one-to-one risk reward. And hey, we've been teaching you guys scaling out at one-to-ones, taking profit, stop at break even, and that would have been a profitable trade. And so right now, here's what we see on Google. We're actually inside of this daily gap zone, right? That gap zone was a low of 127.32 to a high of 128.72, right? And we're actually pretty damn close to the lower end of that gap level at 127.32. So what I want to see today is a daily gap fill bounce on Google, right? We're going to be opening at this point in time. I mean, anything can happen from now until 9:30. Again, we have nearly an hour until the market opens. The market could drop. We could open at 126, and then this trade is like not intact, right? But if we open, let's say, like right here inside of this daily gap zone, I would like to see us drop on down and actually close this gap. Now, again, we talked about this gap yesterday. There's a couple different ways to identify this gap, and I'm going to utilize this as my gap level simply because we have a lot of touch points. We have resistance, we have resistance, we have resistance, we have resistance. So I'm actually utilizing this point from this high a day to the gap up low of day as my initial gap level, right? Because there is some good support right here at this 127 to 127.30 level. So we can clearly see we have a lot of touch points between 127 and 127.30. So that's why I'm utilizing those levels as my initial gap, right? Now, hey, if we come down and don't bounce off that level and we crack that level, we know where the actual gap level is, right? Where we can also identify a gap. And that's all the way down here from the high a day prior to the gap up, right? So technically speaking, this is your gap. From this point, high a day, this point, low a day, look right, this has not been filled yet. But we do have a really good amount of support. Well, from daily resistance, right? High a day, rejection, resistance, got rejected. High a day, got rejected. High a day, got rejected. We dropped, right? So I do believe this is an area that could bounce, and that still does create a bit of this gap between support and resistance from that bigger gap up. So again, taking a look at Google, it was already respecting the top end of the gap, which is fantastic. That level was respected yesterday. I'm curious to see if we can drop on down towards around, again, that like 127 to like 127.30 level as our lower level of support. And if we come down to that lower level and we see great volume and we see a bounce, hey, that area could bounce and we could push on up into the top end of that gap. So that is going to be a trade idea that I have today. It's not one of the top stocks. It's not the best looking one, but it's something that does have great potential. And there's a lot of great support down here. It wouldn't really be a gap fill bounce. So let me retract that when I said, hey, looking for a gap fill bounce. I'm going to retract that because technically speaking, it's not a gap fill bounce, right? A gap fill bounce is closing the actual gap and then bouncing. So I'm going to retract that and say, listen, it is inside of a potential gap zone from this resistance level into the gap up low of day, right? That's going to be right now. Again, resistance since we're below it. And again, this is just a couple key areas of support resistance. And absolutely seeing this start to enter this gap zone, right? We are entering this gap zone because yesterday we cracked below this 128.72 level. So technically speaking, we are inside of a daily gap at this point in time, right? Because you take your gap level, let's just say dragging on down to the high a day prior to the gap up, you are technically inside of this daily gap level. But I do think we have some really, really good support here at like this 127 to 127.30 level, right? And so we're just going to put that zone, let's just call it 127.10, right against those highs, 127.10. And so this is an area that we could bounce, right? Where to? Back up to the top end of this gap level, right? Which was created from the gap up low of day, which is at that 128.72. So I do think personally, and I like this, and if it sets up, I'm going to take the trade. But I do think if we can open, right, drop on down into that daily support level at like this 127.10, and we can hold that level bounce and we have a reason to get in, I think we can bounce on back up towards around 128.72. Back into that level of resistance. That's going to be the top end of this gap zone. And then we have another trade idea after that. If we fail, right, let's say we come on down, we hit that support level on the daily, let's say we do bounce back up to this 127.82. And we know 127.82 is the gap up low of the day. So we're still technically within this bigger picture daily gap zone. And we can't break back above it. That's going to be another great short opportunity, right? To actually get this for the true gap fill, where we can actually see the sucker fade and fall today and, the end of this week, maybe in the next week as well. So a couple different trade ideas on Google, right? If we can open on up, drop on down into this 127.10 level, right? Tons of daily resistance, which could be intraday support today. We could see a nice bounce back up to the top end of this daily gap zone, which is 128.72. And if we fail to break above that level and we start to roll on over, I absolutely would like to get shorts back down to this 127.11. And if we ever do crack below that 127.11 area, then we're actually going to be targeting an official gap fill, which would put you all the way back down at like 123.75, right? So there is good potential. We can clearly see that we are sitting at some pretty key levels of support resistance, right? We're inside of this daily gap level. And again, like I said, there is good potential today with Google. It's not like the best looking setup that we're going to talk about this morning, but it's a good looking setup. We've been seeing a lot of gap fills lately, a lot of these levels being respected as intraday levels, giving us tons of great trades. So I want to keep Google on high watch. We have a couple different trade ideas established. Now it's just sitting back waiting for one of those to really set up for us. All right, so keep GOOG on watch, and it could set up multiple times for us today. And I definitely think it's something worth watching personally, right? Next, we are going to be watching Tesla. Tesla was a beauty yesterday. Tesla was absolutely beautiful. Again, Tesla opened right out of the gate, held that zone of support that we identified down towards around like 254.11. We held it to the penny and we ripped. We actually had a target up towards around like 260.50. We never made it that high. We ended up getting to a high a day at like 259.50 on Tesla. But then we flushed. We came back down into that zone. We bounced. We fell below the zone. We saw it turn into resistance, and then we flushed. So we can see this zone that we identified yesterday in pre-market was respected intraday pretty well. And then what do we see here in post-market? It's now turning back into resistance. What do we see here in pre-market? That zone, which was support yesterday that we identified, is now turning into resistance, 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 right? So what was once support, where we were looking for a long trade yesterday, is now turning into resistance, right? So that being said, if Tesla opens, pushes back into that zone of resistance, and we cannot break above, I would like to get shorts in the zone of resistance for the next leg down. And I see potential back down to yesterday's low of day here on Tesla. And then we have a lot of great potential to see Tesla fill this daily gap, right? So yesterday we came down, we bounced off the 50 SMA, right? We were expecting to see a 50 SMA bounce, right? Because Tesla's respected that 50 SMA several times over the past year. So we came on down, we bounced off the 50 SMA. If we see a continuation leg down today, right, and we actually see the zone hold Tesla down as that strong resistance that we saw several times yesterday, and we get our short entry, of course, we have room back down to the low of day, which is also the 50 SMA. But if we crack yesterday's low of day and then we crack the 50 SMA, right, you're cracking some key support on the daily, you could really start to see Tesla fade and fall and drop on off. Look left. Where could Tesla go? Well, we have this pretty obvious daily gap fill, right? That was created from this high a day into this gap up low of day. So you have this daily gap zone between 235 and 240.76. So if we fail to hold yesterday's low of day, if we fail to hold, right, the 50 SMA, if we fail to hold psychological 250 support, right, 3 key levels of support, and we fail to hold that level, we crack below it, stay below it. Look at the daily. Where's Tesla going to? The most obvious area is going to be coming down to start filling this gap, right? So the first area would be that 240.76 mark, would be your support level coming on up. And then if we crack below that 240.76, that's when we could see this gap fill, right? Down towards around 235. So I do like Tesla today, especially if we can open, push back into that zone of resistance. And I want to stress that this zone was identified yesterday, right? It was respected yesterday, and it's being respected again this morning in pre-market. So we can see that it's a very strong area of what was support, and then it turned into resistance, and now it's strong resistance. So if we cannot break back above this area of resistance and we start rolling on over and topping out, yeah, I definitely want to get short on Tesla back down into the low 250s. 250, psychological support, number one, right? 250, right around the 50 SMA. 250, right at yesterday's low of day. 3 key levels of support. If we crack below that level, hold a runner, because you could see Tesla fade and fall down to 240.76. And then if we ever crack below that 240.76, coming on down to fill that daily gap as low as 235. So keep Tesla on high watch. It looks fantastic today if we stay below the zone. But we always want to have long plans in place as well, right? The short looks fantastic, right? The short looks great, but we don't know what the market's going to do. Tesla could open, push on up, and break that zone. And if it ever pulls back into that zone and we see it turn support, right, there could be some trading opportunity there as well, because we would have some room back up towards around like the 260s. All right, so keep it on watch. It definitely looks to be a better short than a long, but anything could happen. And if we see that zone, again, broken, and we see it turn into support, and we have confirmation to get long, hey, there's still some decent potential to the long side back up towards around that 260.50 level. But I definitely like it short. And if we stay below the zone as resistance, I do want to get short back down into the low 250s and then start targeting that daily gap fill between 235 and 240 there on Tesla. All right, let's dive into AMD real quick. Right, so AMD, right, slight gap up off earnings, and then just dumped yesterday. That's just it. It just dumped all the way back down towards around a low of day at 107.50. But what's 107.50, right? Yeah, it's yesterday's low of day. That's cool and all, but it's all of this prior daily support, right? We came down into the zone, bounced. Into the zone, we held it. Next day, gapped up, pulled back, hit the zone, we bounced, right? Hit the zone, we bounced. So we can see that there is a lot of support right here around this 107.40 level, all right? It's also yesterday's low of day. So taking a look at AMD, right? If AMD opens on up, comes down into this zone, right, and it holds as support, we could look to play AMD long off that level back up to 110. It's a psychological level of resistance, okay? But you want to keep an eye on the overall market. You definitely, on a day like today, you want to keep an eye on the overall market, because if you're seeing the SPY and the Qs dropping, fading, falling, you know, AMD's probably not going to hold that zone as support. We'll probably see it crack that level and possibly turn into resistance for the short, right? But again, these zones are super, super key, high probability levels. And no matter what, if it holds a support, you have a great opportunity to play it long. If it cracks that level and it turns resistance, you have a great opportunity, right, to trade it short. But I do want to stress today that put a lot of focus on the SPY and the Qs, right? SPY and the Qs are below a lot of this resistance, right? And if we fail to break above all of this resistance on the SPY and the Qs, and we see the market rolling on over and we're wanting to get short, right, on the SPY and the Qs, then hey, it's very possible we see stocks move with the overall market, right, and correlate with the overall market. It's very, very possible that we don't see Google hold that level of support and bounce on up. It's possible we just start fading and falling. Same thing with AMD, right? Super, super possible that, hey, just because AMD comes down into the zone and it looks like it's holding, right? If you look at the SPY and the Qs and they look bearish and the market looks like it's going to roll and drop, you know, it's very, very probable that you see AMD fail to hold that level and it's a better short than a long, right? But that's why we're not biased. We don't just say, hey, I'm taking AMD long today or I'm taking AMD short today. We always want to look at both sides of the trade because anything can happen. It's all about identifying your key level of support resistance, that high probability area that you identify. And in this case, it's this zone right here between, 107.08 and 107.67. That's my high probability key level of support or resistance. It's a higher time frame zone that I've identified. And I don't really care what happens, right? It just what happens. I don't care what happens. I just need something to happen, right? And so, long story short, if we come down into that zone and it holds support and we get confirmation to play it long, let's play it long, okay? But at the same time, let's have a short plan in place and well. And that's going to be if we come into the zone and we fail to hold it, right? Let's say the SPY and the Qs are dropping, fading, and falling. Let's say that's pulling the entire market down. Hey, if we crack below that level and we fail to hold it as support, that's fine. I don't really care, because if it pushes back into that zone and we see it turn resistance, hey, I'll play it short all the way back down to where? Right around like 104.60. And we would have some room to like 104.60 to the downside here on AMD, just kind of putting you back underneath some of these daily lows. And then right here, you had that daily hiccup candle as well. So we're just identifying this next support level based on some of these previous daily lows. So if we fail to hold this zone and that zone turns resistance, hey, that's fine. We'll play it short down to 104.60. Great potential to the downside. Okay, but if we come into that zone and we hold as support and we get strong confirmation, to get long, we would have some room back up to some of yesterday's levels here on AMD. So like the first area that I see AMD getting to would be like 109.38 to like 110. So regardless, there is great potential here on AMD, right? You have about $2.30 of potential to the upside if we get confirmation to get long. And if we get confirmation to get short, right, you have about $3 of potential to the downside. So either way you look at it, you have some great potential to catch a trade here on AMD and make a few dollars per share, right? So right now, this is the main key area that you guys need to be focused on here with AMD. Is going to be between that 107 and 107.65, give or take a few cents, right? But that zone, that range of 60 cents, that's the key area that you need to keep on watch. You hold it as support, get confirmation, play it long to 109.38. You crack below this level, turns resistance, you get confirmation. You could look to play it short down to 105 and then 104.61 there on AMD. But again, we're sitting at a very, very strong area. It's a high probability zone right from the daily. So something is bound to happen at this level and provide us with some kind of opportunity. It's a great great idea to keep this one on watch today, guys, here on AMD. All right. Let's go ahead and talk about Meta, because Meta is getting pretty close for a daily gap fill, guys. Right. So Meta topping on out up towards around 325, 326 over the last few days. And now we're starting to roll on over. Where are we pulling back to right now at this point in time on Meta? They gap up low of day at 309.72, right? That was our gap up low of day, right at 309.72, right? That's going to be a support level. We could see Meta come down, hit that 309.72 mark and bounce. And we're really close to it, right? But I'm not actually looking for a bounce off that level. I would like to see Meta crack below and fall below that level and then stay below it as intraday resistance. If we see that intraday crack and retest below 309.72, that officially puts us inside of this daily gap fill zone. And that's an intraday crack and retest that confirms a possible short to the downside. How low could we see Meta go? Well, to close the gap would put us at 301.94. So we could see potentially a 7 to 8 point drop to the downside today on Meta if we do get confirmation to play this short for the daily gap fill. All right. But there are going to be a couple pit stops along the way down. It's not like it's going to go from 309.72 straight down to 301 without bouncing. There are going to be a few areas where we bounce here on Meta. And I would say right around these 3 points. You have this low of day right around 305, this high of day right around 305, and then your 20 EMA right around 305 as well. So that's going to be a first price target. So if we do get confirmation to play Meta shorts for the daily gap fill off that 309.72 rejection, right? We know we have some room down to like 305 on Meta. And if we ever crack below 305, we know we can come down to 301.94 and officially fill this daily gap. So I'm just looking for some intraday confirmation. I want to see Meta come down and eventually crack below that 309.72, watch it turn back into resistance, and then look to get short for a daily gap fill. If you guys are still asking, like, why are you looking at this daily gap fill? Like, crack and retest daily gap fill? Like, come on, man. Is this actually a good strategy? Is this something I should be watching? I think 100%. Gaps are such easy, simple strategies to trade. Like just trading gap levels, right? It's super simple. And those levels are respected beautifully and they're high probability areas. And to give you that example was yesterday on Google, right? To where, hey, we got confirmation to play it short. We came down to the top end, right, of that gap level. The second we cracked it, we pushed back up and literally retested it to the penny. That was confirmation. That is a crack and retest at that level to the penny, not 20-cent difference. They're to the penny, right? These levels, when they're hit to the penny and we get intraday confirmation, these are high probability setups. So yesterday we were talking about Google and pre-market, looking for it to fall below that 128.72, push back up and retest it for confirmation, right? We had potential to drop on down towards around 127.30. Yeah, we didn't make it that low, but we still dropped the dollar. That was still a profitable trade. You were well over 1-to-1, 2-to-1 on that setup. So you were in a position to scale out. It was a winner. Even though it didn't hit final profit target, it was a great trade and we had intraday confirmation. So this is what we're looking for today on Meta. It's that simple, guys. We want to see Meta fall below that 309.72 mark. Okay? Push back up, hit that level of resistance to give us confirmation to start looking to play Meta short down the 305 and then the lower end of the gap to officially close it, which would be 301.94 there on Meta. So Meta's looking really good today. I like it, and I want to keep this one on high watch. Like Meta's going to the top of the watch list because I like Meta that much, okay? I like Tesla as well, but I don't think we're going to put it towards the top. Obviously, I like AMD as well, but I also don't think I'm going to put it towards the top. But Meta really stands out. Meta looks fantastic going to the top of the watch list, okay? We got gap fills left and right, guys. I mean, we are seeing stocks enter these gap levels. We're seeing stocks fill the gaps, get rejected off the gap levels. Great short opportunities. We've been seeing this with large caps, with penny stocks. I mean, guys, it's insane on how many gaps that we've been identifying lately and how many stocks have been respecting these gap levels and giving us trades and fucking amazing trades, right? I mean, look at YELL. It's a penny stock, right? YELL, what happened? We had a gap fill, right? This thing was explosive on Tuesday. And we said, hey, it can come up and close the gap and get rejected. But if we ever break through that gap zone and that gap zone turns into support, right, we can look to play it long. But hey, we know that this is going to be a high probability area, a high probability zone where something's going to happen. You can look to play it short. You can look to play it long. Something's going to happen. Keep that level, keep that zone on watch. What happened with YELL? YELL shot straight up, closed the daily gap, and then got rejected. Great short opportunity. Came back up into that zone, got rejected. Great short. Zone, got rejected. Great short. Into the zone. Oh, wait, we broke the zone. Okay, let's see if that zone holds its support. Pull back. We hold the zone to the penny as support, and then we rip to $5. Look at how many great trades that you can have around gap levels, right? Filling the gap, take it short. Breaking that gap level, turning support, play it long, right? YELL was another great example this week, and that's an area that we talked about here on Tuesday. You guys were fully up to speed and prepared. So why I put a lot of emphasis around these gap levels that we're noticing on the daily across the board on low float stocks, penny stocks, large cap plays, Meta. Why am I putting a lot of emphasis around these daily gap levels? Because they are high probability levels. Something's bound to happen. You have 4 different ways you can trade a gap level. It's one form of TA. It's one thing that you're identifying, right? But you have 4 different ways to trade it, 4 different types of strategies around gap levels, and they're respected so well. So when we see gaps, when we start filling gaps and entering these gap, zones, we know that we could look for like high probability trades off these levels. And again, we see the predictability. We see the follow through. We've been seeing how well these levels have been respected for the last couple of weeks across the board. And again, YELL is just one example recently, from this week. Okay. And I can go back and give you examples from last week that we took the trades on. So that's why I'm putting a lot of emphasis around these gap levels, because we're seeing them respected in their high probability, setups. So that's going to bring me into like ENPH, right? What's ENPH doing right now? I mean, absolutely dumping to the downside. We got several gaps right here on ENPH, but one thing that stands out to me is we're actually in this lower gap level, right? This gap that was created between like 141 and then that gap up low of day at like 146. So we can see we have this daily gap here on ENPH. And so when I take a look at ENPH, right, we're sitting right at that level. We're just chopping at that level. Okay. And I'm just curious to see if ENPH can get above that 141 at some point today and see if 141 can turn back into some like solid support. And if we see the stock get above 141, we see it pull back into 141 and it's strong support, and we have confirmation that it's strong support, guess what? We could start to see ENPH push off that lower gap zone support up to fill that gap, right? At 146, up to the upper end of that gap zone, right? And that gap was just simply identified, right, between these two levels. Now, yes, this gap was filled yesterday. We can all see that ENPH came down and actually closed this gap yesterday. We have a daily candle closing this gap. So what kind of strategy is this? This is a daily gap fill bounce. It's where we have a daily candle closing to fill the gap, right? We actually open the next day and bounce. Where to? Typically back up to the top end of that gap zone, which would be 145.98. So just call it 146. So this is a daily gap fill bounce opportunity. And that's what we're looking for, is where yesterday we came down and closed the gap. We're looking to see if we can get price again above that 141 level, back inside that gap. And if we see it turn support, we know that we could see a daily gap fill bounce back up to 146. Again, does it go to the top of the watch list? No. Right? Is it like the best looking stock today? No. But is it a good looking stock? Is there potential? Yes. Should you get prepared? Should you have eyes on this? I think so. I'm going to be watching it today. All right. Again, BJ's another one. Check out BJ. BJ, daily gap, right? Low of day, 68.86. Gap down, high of day, 66.40. We created this massive daily gap between 66.40 and 68.86, right? So if we hold the gap down high right here at 66.40 as support, we could see BJ start to grind on up and close this gap up towards around 68.86, right? So what I want to see today is if BJ can open, pull back into the 66.40 level and see if it bounces. If we see that level respected, if we see that level hold and bounce, I would expect to see BJ start to push on up. I don't think it's going to close the gap today. That would be a pretty big move. I mean, like, what does the stock usually do on average? I mean, low of day of 64.70, high day of 65.70. So you got like a dollar move there, 64 to 65. So, I mean, you move like $1 to $1.50 on average. You got 4 points of potential to the upside. So I highly doubt you're going to see this thing move 4 points today. But today, tomorrow, into next week, to see this slowly grind on up and close that gap, it could be a great day trade opportunity that turns into a swing trade. So this is something that you want to really think. Okay, if I get in today and it respects that level and it starts to grind and it still looks strong towards the end of the day, and I think it can move again tomorrow, let me make sure I'm getting positioned correctly. Let's not trade Friday's expiration. Let's go 30, 45 days out. Let's get positioned correctly as if this was a swing trade. It's a day trade opportunity that could turn into a swing trade. So when I'm looking to get involved with BJ, I want to make sure I'm going 30 to 45 days out, buy myself time and say, hey, if I get in for a day trade and I don't close my entire position because it still looks good by the end of the day, and I want to actually hold some of that position overnight, I'm at least already prepared and positioned to do that, knowing that I'm not going to have to worry about the theta decaying my contracts overnight into tomorrow because I'm not thinking ahead. So think ahead. If you think this could be a great day trade opportunity, and who knows, maybe it turns into a great swing trade because these levels are respected and we have a strong end of day close, just make sure before you enter the trade, you're positioned correctly to hold those contracts if you want to, right? But BJ looks decent, right? Not one of the best ones. There's some other great stocks out here today, guys, but it looks decent enough to keep it on watch. We're inside of this daily gap level. And if we hold the lower part of this daily gap level, which is 66.40 support, we could see a nice little push today and start to close this gap into tomorrow, into next week. So I want to keep BJ on high watch. I think Josh is already on his second Celsius. He is on point. Yeah, I'm not even 2 in. I got 1 and then 1/10. So I'm like 110% in right now. But I have not had any more Celsius, man. I still got to drink it. All right, cool. That's BJ. All right, I love saying it, BJ. All right, and then we got a couple ones that we're stretching, right? So I talked about the ones that stand out the most. Meta, obviously it stands out, looks fantastic, right? Alphabet looks great. Tesla, AMD, they look fantastic. ENPH, it's not bad. I think it's worth watching, okay? BJ, it's not bad. I think it's worth watching. CRM, it's not bad. I think it's worth watching. What levels are we looking at? We have this big daily gap level, right? Between a low of 212.83 to a high of 217.24. Those are your levels that create this big O daily gap. So if CRM opens on up today, falls below 217.24 and stays below that level as resistance, right? Same idea as Meta, same idea as the other gap examples that I've given you, right? We fall below that 217.24 level and then come back up and then test it as resistance and stay below that level as intraday resistance. We could close the gap today on CRM and the gap would be closed right down at 212.87. That's where we would close the gap, down at this 212.87. So there's about not quite 5 points. You're looking at about what? 4.5 points of potential here on CRM. So all we're looking for is an intraday crack and retest off this 217.24. And then we know we could drop on off pretty nice to close the gap, right? And that's why I like gaps as well, if I haven't really hit it on the head, is when you're in a gap zone, there's no volume traded. Throw a volume profile on CRM. If anybody has a volume profile, put on a volume profile, right? There's going to be a valley within the VP, right? VP volume profile. If you put one on here, there's going to be a valley, most likely a valley between those two prices, right? You know, you have peaks and valleys with the volume profile, right? Support, resistance, where stocks can go to and move quickly from, level to level, right? Yeah, I can't say guarantee, but I would say with 90% confidence, you put a volume profile here on this, there's going to be a valley, right? A dip between these two prices. Price can fall quickly through those valleys. Price can fall quickly, right, in these gap levels. So that's why I like trading these gaps, because we get inside of that gap zone, right, and stay below it. I know we can fall pretty quickly into that lower level. And that's another reason why I like the setup. I don't feel like I have to hold it for an hour. We can see these moves fairly quickly. So again, CRM for the possible daily gap fill to the downside, right? We're looking for a crack below this level, retest it as resistance, fade and fall. We want to take it short as close to 217.24 as possible, and then get out at 212.87. Then guess what? You have a daily gap fill bounce idea. It could come on down to 212.87, close the gap, and then bounce. You could go flip long and trade it long for the leg back up to 217.24. So there's so many ways to trade this, guys. So many different opportunities, and it's just based on two simple levels here on CRM, right? So with that being said, that's going to be CRM. And then lastly, we got Disney. And Disney right now is a daily gap fill bounce, right? Just like ENPH, right? Same idea as ENPH. We closed the daily gap yesterday. We're looking to see if we can hold that lower gap level as support today and push off of it for a daily gap fill bounce. Same thing with Disney, right? Yesterday, we closed at pretty close to the daily gap level, right? So we have this close at 86.14 prior to this gap up here on Disney before that explosive move, here on Monday. And we just tanked yesterday. We dropped. We fell off a cliff yesterday. Where to? Back down to the close prior to that gap up, right? We're filling the gap on Disney. So the gap level is at 86.14. So 86.14 closes that daily gap. All right. So right now, where are we at? We're sitting right around 86.14. So if you see Disney get above and actually stay above 86.14, I wouldn't be surprised if you see Disney push back up into this low from yesterday. Not yesterday's low, but into this low from yesterday, right at like 86.72. So again, I got it down towards the lower part of the watch list. It's not one of my top plays because the opportunity is limited, right? It looks decent on the daily. It could definitely get above that 86.14 and hold that gap level and push off of it today. We could see that gap fill bounce. There's a possibility there, right? But there's not a lot of potential to the upside. You got like 60 cents, 50 cents. I want to find a stock that has $1, $2, $3 of potential. So I wanted to talk about it because there is a potential daily gap fill bounce strategy here. And I know some of you guys look at Disney on a day-to-day basis, and maybe these are some levels that you want to keep on watch for today. But again, the ones that I like the most, right? Meta looks freaking fantastic. We have 7 to 8 points of potential to drop to the downside to close that gap. Count me in, right? Count me in. You know, if Google can hold, right, that 127.32, we have potential to bounce about $1.50 to the upside. If we crack below 127.32, and Google's like, you know what? I'm just going to go fill this gap all the way down at 123.76. I'm closing this. I'm closing this gap, baby. 123.76, right? You can see there's a lot of potential to the downside if we fail to hold that lower support level, right? And actually bounce. That would put you down like 123.76. And that is a massive drop. That's about 5 points to the downside potentially here on Google. So, I mean, regardless, long or short, there is great potential today here on Google. Tesla, again, long or short, I don't care. There is great potential, right? If we see Tesla stay below the zone of resistance and top on out, you know, probably top out right around 255. You got room down to 250. That's 5 points. You crack below 250, where are you going, right? 240. You crack below 240, where are you going? 235 to close the gap. Probably not going to all happen today, but Tesla moves, right? 10, 15 points to the downside in the next couple of days is not unrealistic, you know, whatsoever. And you guys still may be short on Tesla. Who grabbed the Tesla puts last week? Did anybody grab Tesla puts as it was hitting that multi-month downtrend that we were discussing last week? Right, that downtrend that we got rejected off of, we were looking to get in back up towards around 268, 269, as close to it as possible for those puts. If anybody grabbed puts, you're already up. If you missed those puts last week, hey, it's okay. We have another potential opportunity today to still come down and close that gap. All right. So if you got in up here, you guys you're eating. You're just absolutely crushing it right now. If you missed those puts on Tesla, hey, it's okay. You're not chasing Tesla to the downside because it's setting up again and giving us another high probability setup. So like I said, guys, a lot of potential here with Tesla, okay? And even if we do not hold this zone as a resistance for the drop, and let's say we get above it and we turn support, that's fine. I'm not long buys or short buys. I'll play this long back up into that next area of resistance right around 260. But again, right now, if we can't break that zone, like we see a lot of great potential to the downside. Down to 250, we crack 250. We got a lot of great potential to drop down to like 240. So Tesla on high watch. And then AMD, right? Again, I don't care if it's long or short, right? I'm not biased. AMD looks great. If AMD wants to come down today, right, and hold this zone of support, great. Let's take it long. Back up to like 109.40, I think it was, 109.40, and then 110. We'll play it long. But if AMD opens on up and says, yeah, not today, we're just going to poop. All right, let it come back up into that zone. Watch it turn resistance. You see it turn resistance, you get confirmation for the short. Take it short down the 104.61, right? There's still a lot of great potential here. 2 to 3 points, whether that's to the upside or whether that's to the downside for the long or the short. But AMD, either way, sitting at a key area, and we want to keep it on watch at this key level and see how it sets up, and then take those trades when they present themselves, okay? And then couple back burners that are worth watching, but you know, they're kind of towards the bottom of the watch list. They are going to be some back burners. That's going to be ENPH for the daily gap fill bounce. That's going to be BJ, right, to come down into that gap level that lower level of support, and then bounce. See BJ start to close that daily gap to the long side, right? We got CRM looking to fall inside of that daily gap zone and then fill the gap today down towards around 212.87. And then lastly, got Disney for a possible daily gap fill bounce off this 86.14. But like I said, this is one of the ones that go to the very, very, very bottom of the watch list. Okay. I don't like it as much as everything else. I still think it may be worth watching. But that's why it's towards the bottom of the watch list. All right. Because it's 50-50-ish right now. We'll have to see how it opens and, see how it sets up. But these other plays, Meta, Google, Tesla, AMD, top four, right? Starting to go into the back burner watch list. ENPH, BJ, CRM, and then at the bottom, you got Disney, but all sitting at some pretty key levels. And that's why I think they're worth watching, right? Because we could see great setups intraday at these higher time frame key levels and just have high probability A+ setups today and look to rock this market and lock some great profits in while keeping our risk pretty damn small, right? So that's going to be the options watch list for today. And if you guys can't tell, my focus is options, right? We have so much opportunity with these large cap plays today. We discussed the SPY as well, right? We discussed the Qs, right? So much opportunity, with these large cap plays, trading options. Like, I don't even want to watch penny stocks today because there's just so much good opportunity with these with the stocks that we just talked about that are on the options watch list, right? But for those of you still watching the pennies, you got TTOO, right? TTOO right now is moving on up, but we're failing to really hold above this $36 level. So we're just having a hard time like staying above, 36 cents. And so we're starting to kind of roll on over a little bit. We could see TTOO, pull back towards around like 32 cents before you get a bounce. Right. And if you ever crack below like 32 cents on TTOO, you could see it back down at like 26 cents on TTOO. But if you can hold 32 cents and see a nice little bounce and you get a setup, at some point you could see the stock take on off. It could get a lot of activity and have a lot of volume towards it. And you have room to like 50 cents. So there is potential to the upside, but it just doesn't look the best right now at this point in time here in pre-market. So maybe keep it on watch. You have 32 cent support. And if you come down and hold that support level, hey, you can look to trade it long up towards around 50 cents. And who knows? Maybe traders come back over to TTOO. Maybe we see that nice big run up, that nice big spike. There is some room to 50 cents. But the one that I like the most for penny stocks is YELL, right? And YELL was the first stock that I posted up this morning, right? Because sometimes we see pre-market mid-candle breakouts, right? How many times have you guys seen a mid-candle breakout on the daily, but it starts to rip in pre-market? And you're like, what the? It happens quite a bit. So that's why I posted up YELL inside of chat this morning. I posted it up inside of the levels chat room. I posted it up inside of alerts as well because I wanted you guys fully up to speed with YELL. So, hey, YELL is looking great for the mid-candle breakout today. I would like to see this get back inside of our daily gap zone, right? The one that we just talked about and utilized YELL as that example on how well that level was respected, right? Want to see it get back inside of that daily gap zone between 305 and 329 and hold that lower end of the zone as support, 305, right? If we break 305 and hold 305, I'm going to start scaling in for the leg up to 329. Okay. So obviously scaling in the low threes, as close to 305 as possible, scaling in, right? For the leg up to 329. I will take some profits at this level to secure some profit. Then move stops up to break even just in case we don't see the setup play on out. Okay. So again, idea in my trade plan and my game plan was scaling in the low threes, seeing that 10% pop up into the 329 level, and then just taking some profit, right? If I threw 10K at the trade, right, would be how many shares? 3,000 shares. If I would have bought 3,500 shares, for example, that's a $10,000 investment. From 3 to 330 is 10%. I'd be up $1,000, right? Just building that plan in my head. And I'm like, so I can start scaling out. Maybe I can lock in 25% of my position and throw $250 on the table. Maybe I want to lock in half my position and secure a quick $500 on the day, and then leave the other half of my position open with a stop loss at break even. So I could get stopped at break even on the other 50%, but I still walk away profitable on the first half my position that I sold, right? That was the game plan. Being able to get in the low threes, take some profits up towards around 329, right? That's the upper end of that gap zone, right? Take some profits and then bring stops to break even just in case the mid candle breakout doesn't play out. But if the mid candle does play out, we have room to 350, 370, 390, and $5. Gave you guys a nice little screenshot as well so you guys know what a mid candle looks like. Okay. Did I get the trade? Unfortunately not. I'm too busy mentoring you guys. I'm just joking. I love it. But it did exactly like what we wanted it to do. We got inside that zone, right? And we started to push on up, right up to 329. So, hey, the mid candle starting to play out. We got above and stayed above 305, ran up to 329. Now we're hitting these highs at 347, very close to our second target. So we're already seeing this mid candle breakout play out, and we're seeing that action early on here in pre-market. So always get inside of alerts, always get inside of levels. And again, just pay attention to what we talk about in the morning. These can be great pre-market trades for you guys or stocks that are setting up right at the start of the day. But that was on YELL. And again, there's still good potential, right? There's still good potential today to actually see YELL continue to the upside. Give me one sec. So I noticed my computer is like lagging. My cursor's lagging across the screen. I'm like, what is using a lot of resources right now? All right, we should be good. I don't know, a little bit of a spike there, but my computer, I thought it was gonna like die. Yeah, so we're back above that zone, right? So we were really looking at that daily zone level that we talked about when I was giving you guys the example of daily gap fills and strategies and setups, the example on YELL, right? I was really just basing my scale in, scale out trade plan based on those two zones, those two levels, because it was really well respected on Tuesday. And so we're still going to utilize these two levels, right? These are high probability levels. We're still going to utilize them. Okay. We got above 305. We came back up to 329 and we broke it. Let's see if 329 holds on up. Right. If we can hold above this 329 level, okay, we can definitely see the next leg up to 350. This trade is still in play, right? We still have opportunity to see this stock set up and go on a big time move. So even if you're not in at 305, it's okay, right? It'll definitely, I wouldn't say definitely, but it'll possibly set back up for us. So let's see if it holds above 329. If we see a higher low forming off 329, let's get long. Where to? 350, then 370, then 390, and then $5. Okay. If we can't hold 329, let it come back down to 305. If we hold 305, get long for the mid candle breakout. So this trade could still play out, right? There's still an opportunity to get long at a great level and not feel like you're chasing the play if you're not in already in pre-market. All right. So 329, if that holds and sets up, let's get long. We have great potential to 350, 370, 390, and then $5. If we fall below 329, it's still in play. Let it come down to 305. If it holds the lower end of that gap zone as support, let's get long. All right. Where to? Back up to 329, then 350, 370, 390, and then $5. There's still great potential here with YELL. Keep it on high watch, penny stock traders. All right. And then maybe SoFi again. Remember, SoFi yesterday was getting short in that zone. It's a great short. Came right down to our 975 target. I mean, absolutely beautiful. Nailed the fucking top. Nailed the bottom. It's great stuff. That was a really sexy trade that I didn't take any of. Literally, someone's going to just get access to my trading account and just trade the setups for me, and we'll do a 50-50 profit split. We'll figure something out. That's all you do is you just trade my game plans, all of them. Then we'll split everything 50-50. Joey, I thought Joey was like, I'll do it. If SoFi gets back up to that zone and it tops out again, I may look for another short. I'm really stretching the trade idea on SoFi. I mean, it's decent. It's not great, but it's decent. So, when I thought to watch it out of the gate, it's because we were sitting right here. So I was like, hey, if we kind of just continue to consolidate and we open close to that zone, we could pop in it and then drop. We're already way down here, so I don't know. I'm probably going to scratch SoFi. Now that I look at it, I haven't looked at it in a minute, but now that I look at it again and look at where we're going to be opening, right, compared to where that zone was, I'm gonna just sit back on SoFi. I mean, if SoFi opens in the next 5 minutes close to that zone of resistance, okay, like I'll watch it for sure. But if we open way down here, I'm just going to keep it like towards the bottom of the watch list. I'll make it a back burner. But I mean, there's just so many great opportunities. I mean, SoFi's decent, but why would I focus on SoFi when there's other great opportunity? Why would I focus on a decent setup, a decent trade when we got great setup, great trades? So this is where I want my focus to be. Okay. I want my focus all over the SPY at that zone of resistance that we talked about between 449.36, right, and 450. If we can't break through that zone, we're not moving higher. We're dropping on off. Where to? 445 first, and then filling this daily gap down towards around 444.29. A lot of great potential to the downside. Okay, we could fade and fall and just really rock this market today, and it'd be super simple, super easy. All right, SPY looks great. I'm putting my focus there, right? We got 4 to 5 points of potential to fade and fall. Same thing with QQQ, sitting right at that zone of resistance. If we fail to break through it, it is resistance. We look to short it down. We also have a daily gap fill here on QQQ, down towards around 369. All right. Meta, daily gap fill. Look at where Meta's going to start opening. Jesus, look at that. It's right at that level. If we open inside of this daily gap zone, and we push up into that resistance level and get rejected, I'm getting short right at the start of the day. 100% I'll be getting short, right? This is great potential here on Meta, guys. Great stuff here on Meta today to the short side to fill this daily gap. So like, why would I want to watch YELL, TTOO, and SoFi that are like decent when you got Meta looking like sexy? I mean, I want to marry Meta. I want to take Meta out for a date. I want to buy Meta flowers, right? Man, looks great, all right? And I just want to watch this one because, again, there's great potential. Okay. And there's some other good ones too. Google looks decent, right? Tesla looks pretty good, right? AMD, pretty good. But Meta is sexy. I mean, I'm drooling. I'm foaming from the mouth. It looks so good. So this is the one I'm going to be watching at the start of the day because this is like a go-to trade for me. This is like my go-to ideal setup. And it's opening right where it should open for this to be freaking amazing. So listen, that's my trade plan. That's my idea. I like Meta for my reasons. We'll see how it plays out, good or bad, right? But I always want to stress for everybody on TikTok, everybody that's watching the pre-market rundown over on YouTube, and then everybody inside of chat, right? Blindly trading and blindly following somebody into a trade, no matter how fucking good they are, you're never going to succeed. You're not going to make money consistently. There's so many variables. My risk tolerance is different than yours. Right? I'll hold a trade maybe longer than you. My level of conviction behind this trade is different than you. I know how to get positioned based on my account and I know what my risk is. Like I've built a plan, I've gotten prepared, right? I've taken the steps needed to like be ready to take this trade. Like what a lot of traders do is they hear this analysis, they see how convicted I am. And I am convicted. I like the setup. And what they do is they say, fuck, I'm just going to follow him in. What did he take? 20 contracts? Tomorrow's expiration? All right, 20 contracts, tomorrow's expiration. 20 contracts for you may be way too much. I may be losing $500 on this trade with my position. $500, maybe half your account. You know what I mean? Like, dude, you just can't trade blindly. If you like the setup and you agree with me and you're like, yeah, I like the setup. I see what you're saying. And I've seen this play out multiple times over the last couple of weeks. Yeah. Okay, cool. If we get confirmation, I would be willing to take that trade as well. I like it. I see it. It's in line with what works for me. Let's say that's, what's running through your head. Okay. You still have to build your plan. You still have to know how many contracts you're taking, right? What's your risk going to be? You still have to take that next step and get prepared. You can't just jump in blindly. So again, don't just jump in blindly. It doesn't work, right? One of my mentors 6 years ago, he was a really good trader, right? He won a lot. I mirror traded him and I lost a lot, right? And he was winning all the time. And I followed the same trades and I lost all the time. It never works, right? It doesn't work. Get educated, understand the setups, understand what we're talking about. That's why we're so thorough with what we do. That's why we have an amazing course library and training vaults. I mean, so much education, so much support, so much mentorship within this program, right? You're learning all the time. Like there's just every 5 minutes you're learning something new, I feel like. There's just so much, here to learn. That's your goal, is to learn, to understand this, right? And take some of these trades, but take some of these trades on a demo account first, right? If you've never taken this type of setup before, you don't know what to expect. Like I said, take it on a demo account. Don't just blindly enter trades until you fully understand the trade, reasoning behind it, criteria that needs to be met, right? And you have that same high level of conviction. So anyway, guys, market is open. So let's have an amazing day. Let's crush it. Let's just absolutely dominate this market today, ladies and gentlemen. All right. So let's have a good day. You guys know my watch list. You know what I'm looking at. It's going to be a good day. It's going to be a profitable day. And like I said, we are going to absolutely crush this market, ladies and gentlemen. So let's get with it. All right. And we're just waiting for the setup. That's it. Just waiting for the setup, baby. That's all we're doing. We got lots of opportunity, right? So many different stocks that could set up. We just have to wait for the setup, right? That's it. Just be calm, cool, collected. Just sit back on yo lovely hands. Oh my gosh, YELL is just giving you everything you want. I don't have my broker open right now. What am I doing? I couldn't take a trade if I wanted to. I don't even have my broker open. But for those of you penny stock traders, I mean, what do we say? If we hold 329, you can look to take it long to 350. Well, I mean, you just had a pretty nice pop to 350. Right now, you're trying to hold 329. Quick little scalp opportunity there. Yeah, I gotta get my platform open. Come on. What's go? Okay, here we go. Here we got the right mic. Yeah, we're good. We're set. Anthony, boss. What's up, dude? Good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm fantastic. How are you, man?
I'm good.
You weren't expecting that. Like, okay, buddy, settle down a little bit. I know you've had quite a few Celsius, but chill. That's awesome, man. Day number 4, Anthony. Day 4 of the week, dude. Another great day ahead. Oh, yeah.
I'm forcing myself not to trade for the first 15 minutes.
I meant to ask you, because I saw your check-in last night. Did something happen to where you're like, maybe I should just like hold off the first 15 minutes?
I was up quite a bit, and then I took one more trade that I shouldn't have, and I realized that afterwards. And then, so today, I'm just going to watch until I see it come to me.
Oh, fantastic, man. I love it. Yeah, let it come to you, and you still walked away green yesterday, which is fantastic.
Yeah, maybe I can make it a full green week.
Dude, that's the goal right now, right? That's the goal. And so, you could look at it a couple different ways too, man, right? It's like, yeah, you just want to crush the week, right? You want it in green. You want to have a green streak. That's great. So just really keep that front and center in your mind of, I don't want to give anything back. I want to hit that goal of 5 green days in a row. And so just really make sure that's front and center in your mind, like you already are. And that's going to keep you out of those, say, sloppy trades that we shouldn't really be jumping into.
Right.
And keep the losses nice and small, man. That's all it's about. Keep the losses nice and small.
I've done good about that risk management this week. Really good.
You have. You've been crushing it with risk management, man. And it's all just down to like calculating the risk reward ahead of time, right? Like, okay, how many contracts? What's the delta? And then are you putting like hard stops, like we talked about in the system for those options based on that calculation? Or are you still doing manual stops?
No, I've done hard stops all week on every single trade.
Every single one. And I would assume like some have stopped you out, but for the most part, a lot of these stocks are hitting targets.
I have been stopped out of 2 this week. That's it.
That's it. With that predetermined stop.
The others I've hit before the stop on myself, just to stop it.
Just to stop it, because you're like, I don't like the trade anymore. Let's just go ahead and get out and mitigate the risk.
Right.
So curious, like, because I know you're not trading the first 15 minutes anyway. You're just kind of sitting back. So I'm curious, like with those stops, did you go back and review the trade when you were stopped out at those trades that you had a hard stop in the system and go back and say, like, was I prematurely stopped out? Or was that actually a good time to get out because the thing continued to go against you?
On the 2 that I got stopped out at, yeah, they were perfect. They were perfectly set.
Perfect stops. So no premature stops, doing the calculations correctly and spot on.
Though there was one that I remember, I'd seen the price action moving down, and then I got out myself, but I got out prematurely because as soon as that happened, it went up.
It went up, guys. So you can kind of see like manual stops, doing it on your own, and then having that predetermined stop calculated, right, based on how you're building those plans, and that seems to be what's working the best. Stopping you out when you should get stopped out, not premature, and your winners are working for you, and it allows you to be a little bit more patient and actually wait for the setup to take place for you.
Yeah, exactly.
Good stuff, man. Good stuff. I love hearing it. Chelsea, what levels were you watching the SPY? I'm projecting another down day. Yeah, same here. So the main area of concern for me is this resistance zone between 449.34 and 450. So I know it's a pretty big window of resistance, but this is an area that I really, really want to keep on watch. And it's basically just yesterday's low of day and yesterday's close. Like sometimes when we gap down, we push up to close the gap into the prior day low, and then we drop. Sometimes we push up into the prior day close, and then we drop. So it's like, is it going to be yesterday's low of day or close where we truly fill the gap before possibly rolling on over and having that down day that we are expecting? Like, it does show a lot of weakness. You're below the 20 EMA, right? 2 days where you've gapped down back to back. And again, you have a lot of strong support down at like 445. So we see there is more room to the downside. But the question is, where are we going to bounce back up to? Is it yesterday's low of day or is it yesterday's close? So let's just mark up both of those levels with a nice little box. And that's going to give us a range, a window of resistance off of yesterday's low of day and yesterday's close. So that's why I'm looking at this window, this range, right? That's box. Still got to find a solid word for it. As resistance, and depending on what it does at that level, depending on what price action looks like, and if we even have a reason to get short, that's going to be the area that I would expect to see the best short opportunity if the market is going to roll on over today. So that's the area that I'm looking at here on the SPY. And if we come up into that zone, we get rejected and we start to roll on over, like I see potential down towards around 445 and then down to fill this daily gap, right? To start filling this gap down towards around like 444.29. But there's a lot of support down here between 444.29 and that 445. So those are going to be those lower levels of support that I do believe the SPY could be getting to very shortly. Maybe not all today, but by the end of next week, it wouldn't surprise me seeing the SPY down below 445 and closing this daily gap here. So right now, just kind of sitting back, being patient, letting the SPY bounce on up for us. Same thing with QQQ, sitting back, being patient, waiting for it to bounce on up. And if you guys are watching the Qs, I'm doing the same thing with the Qs as I did with the SPY. I'm marking up yesterday's low of day and yesterday's close. That's that zone that I want to see it topping on out in. And if we start rolling on over and we're respecting that level, that area as resistance, that's when I want to start getting short down to the low 370s on the Qs.
I got a question.
Yes, sir.
I asked in the chat, but maybe it got looked over. The position sizer you pull up on TradingView, what does Thinkorswim have that?
They don't. Yeah. So yeah, we talked about that yesterday. Like TOS, they don't have it. E-Trade, they don't have it. And we're like, you would think it's something so like simple that they would have that, right? But yeah, man, unfortunately, yeah, TOS doesn't have it. And that's why that's one of the reasons why I haven't like gone back to TOS, because I really like that, like having it from like a visual aid perspective, to really show the risk reward for everybody. So I guess the one that's setting up right now for us is Tesla. Tesla's the one that's got into that level of resistance that I wanted to keep on watching. Like I said, you always have to map out your own plans, build your own plans, get positioned correctly. You can't just blindly enter a trade for no reason at all. So again, always have your plans built, understand your risk levels, get positioned correctly. But Tesla is inside of that level of resistance, right? That zone that we identified, that we respected like 1,000 times, I feel like yesterday. We're back up to the top end of that resistance level, which puts you at like 255.78. So if we start to see Tesla is indeed topping on out, we start rolling on over, we could start to look for a nice little short on down at this upper level of resistance. And again, the upper level of resistance, 255.78. So if we come up and hit that 255.78 level, like to the penny, and we see a rejection, I would start getting short, looking for a quick drop and a quick pullback. Intentions would be to scalp this for a quick drop and then scale out. And if we follow through, hey, we follow through and, have a nice little runner. So let's see what Tesla does on this candle. You see how we just got rejected there a little bit? What's going on here? That was weird. I'm trying to get in. That was the most weird thing I've ever seen in my life. Here, let me reset real quick. I'm not sure what's going on. Dude, am I going to miss the my platform just spazzed out. Yeah, I got to reset real quick. Ah, man. Well, hopefully it still gives me an entry point. Jeez. Good? That was weird. Okay, so Tesla, August 4th. Tomorrow's expiration. Honestly, I'll probably go out until like next Friday. I'll play the 250 puts. No, I will trade tomorrow's. I'll trade tomorrow's. They're a lot less expensive. That was weird. It's doing it again. What is fucking going on here? Give me a sec. I got to reach out to Lightspeed real quick. Give me 1 sec. I don't understand what's going on right now. Anyway, again, Tesla looks like a good short right here, but I don't know what's going on. Like, my platform's spazzing out. It's like I open a position and it shows like I'm down like 10K and then it just disappears. I'm so confused right now. Like, do I have data connection? All right, I'll reach out to them. I'm going to open up my Roth and just trade my Roth right now. My whole computer's spazzing out right now. It's weird. Well, maybe I can get this open in a trade because it's right there. It's right there. The risk is so tight. The reward is so high. It's like if we top out here and we start rolling on over, this could be a great short. So let me see if I can get my broker open. If someone asks, should I enter a trade? The answer would be no. If you have to ask, should I enter? My response would be no. You shouldn't. Like I said, you have to understand these setups, understand the reasoning, and we educate upon these setups, upon the reasoning. So you guys have full understanding of the setups. You guys can get that high level of conviction. You can build your plans, right? You should never blindly follow anybody in the trades. Because again, there's a lot of variables, man. Account size, level of conviction, risk, understanding the setup, understanding of how it should move and how it should develop, right? Like, I mean, Tesla is dumping though. Like, I can't even get a trade off the table. It's great. Ah, Jesus. It's always something, man. It's always something. Nice little drop too. Great price action. Couldn't break through that upper level. Nice big drop. Let me see if I can get logged into my Roth at least. Lightspeed takes forever to write back. All right, cool. Maybe it sets back up for us. I mean, if not, missed opportunity. It's okay, but really, really nice dollar drop right off the rip. You took like little to no heat. Took like maybe 20 cents of heat. Still dropping on off. You got room down to 254.12. That puts you at 2 points of profit on possibly like 2 minutes. Did someone already post up profits? I'm going to find you where you live. I'm going to hurt you. I'm kidding. All right, so let's get that brought up. Sorry, guys. Running into some technical difficulties today. I have a update on my computer. No, I don't have an update. But it's lagging like real bad today, so let's put that off to the side. Keep that on watch. Okay, well, I can't grab Tesla now. right? Because the entry on Tesla was right there at 255.76 off that level. And if it would have broken through it, I was quick stop out, right? So little to no heat, got that massive drop, $1 to the downside. And that was a quick, quick little scalp to start scaling out. Or at least taking some profits and going break even on the rest. If we continue the drop, you're coming down towards around that 254.12 level. But again, I'm not going to chase this move to the downside. If I miss the trade, I miss the trade. Anita goes, this is for yesterday. In your face, Tesla. In your face. Locked in a quick $100. I love it. I love it. Anita's already coming in strong. Already locking in 260 on the day. We're not even 15 minutes in. Already up $260. Good work. He's still looking good to the downside. I'm going to freaking call my broker today, and I'm going to yell at them. It's all good, though. Meta got plenty of time before it sets up. Google has some time down to this 127.32. Tesla already had a nice little $1.50 drop to the downside, already locking in some great profits. Just again, I'm scanning through the watch list, looking to see if anything else is possibly setting up for us. There was CRM too. CRM opened below that level and then tapped it 3 times. Tap, tap, tap. Nice drop. So there's your 217.24 entries on CRM. You're already down to 215.50. You're almost up about 2 points on CRM already. But again, those options may be like the spreads may have been large. CRM may have been a tough one to trade, but if you're trading shares, you're looking pretty good. How's the SPY doing? SPY, I got some time, guys. I'm really wanting to see if it gets up into that level of resistance and then really just go from there. TTOO, nothing there. YELL, trying. Right? Still could be a nice little mid-candle breakout, but YELL has to stay above like 3 to 305, right? YELL needs to now stay above 3 to 305 if this is going to set up and actually play on out for you guys.